Coaches, good afternoon. My name is Chaz Henry, and this is the PowerChalk Wednesday webinar. Thanks for joining us today. The topic du jour is markup and control inside the ChalkTalk Telestrator. So the last 2 weeks we focused on the process of giving lessons, but today we're going to go straight into the Telestrator. We're going to talk about how to control and mark up the video. So specifically, we're going to load videos, we're going to do markup, we're going to talk about the different tools on the tool palette. We're going to introduce a new feature that is a redesigned text feature. One of the comments that we've had and some of the suggestions we've had, we've taken and we've developed a redesigned text module. And we're going to talk about diagrams, photos. The goal here is not to tell you how to coach the mechanics of your sport, but to improve the lessons you give from a visual standpoint. So with that, we'll talk about how to do photos, and we'll talk a little bit about our webcam application, which is coming soon. So let me go back over to this. I'm going to close this window and basically put myself right in my locker. So like I said, we're not going to spend much time here in the locker, but instead we're going to take one of my videos in my locker, and we're going to pull down the action bar and say ChalkTalk this video. So I've chosen Addie's video here, and the Telestrator loads, brings me into the video, and shows me that I have a 359 frame video. So you see here in my video indicator that I'm sitting on frame 1 of 359. So let's just start at the top here and talk about the different tools. So I've got a laser pointer. Now the laser pointer is useful if I want to bring Addie's attention to her hand or her foot. I simply hold my mouse down while in laser mode, and the system produces a laser pointer. Now what this is good for is if I instead draw a circle with my freeform pen here around her foot, I can bring her attention to that, but it's something that I later have to erase. So I need to now say erase last. What I can do with the laser pointer is I can say, hey, let's talk about your eyes being right on the target. So I'll just hold that down. It shows up in my final video, but as soon as I let my mouse go, the laser is gone. So that's really what the laser pointer is about. So moving down, let's go to line. Now you'll notice in the corner of the line, the oval, and the angle tools, there's a little triangle. Now that triangle lets me circle through the different types of lines. So you see here, I can go line, but I can also go arrow. So if I'm talking about her looking straight at her target, I can draw that as an arrow. I can, if I'm in a football situation, I can draw that as a block. So you notice the only difference is it stretches out as I draw, and the only difference is the end cap. The end cap on that line is, in this case, what is typically used in a football diagram to show a block. I can switch to vertical line. And now I want you to notice my cursor here. So no matter where, even though I'm pulling my cursor further and further to the right, the line only grows vertically. So whether I'm here or here, my line grows only vertically. All right, so it's a nice way to say, put my, let's say when you're talking about someone hitting and you talk about their back side or their front side, you can easily draw a line and you can box them up and know that your line's not going to lean one way or the other. So horizontal and, of course, dash. So let me erase everything I've done here and move on to box. Now, I should say that as I'm doing these, what I'm doing, I'm clicking the tool, and then I'm pressing down over here in the video area, and I'm holding down. So it's a drag approach. It's a click and drag as opposed to click. If I just click here, I just created almost a 0 width and length box. You notice that little dot there. So it's not a click to draw a box. It's a click, hold, and drag. So that's the way most of these tools work. We see erase all there. Move down to the draw tool. The draw is freeform draw. So I can literally, sometimes what I'll do is I will use my draw tool to write text. I'm going to show you the new text feature, but that's really showing you the versatility of the draw tool. So there's really nothing that I can't do. A lot of people will stay in draw mode and they'll draw circles even though they're not perfect circles, to illustrate the head, but then they can also draw the lines and they can draw arrowheads, and they can, like we said before, you could draw a block in a football diagram with a single tool. So that's probably your most versatile of tools. Again, let me erase all and move to the oval. Now the oval is a circle that's not a perfect circle. So I can go corner to corner. It's much like the box tool. As I hold and drag, I'm going to get an oval. Now if I want a perfect circle, then I can click on circle. Now you'll notice one thing about the circle. The little bullseye is in the middle of the circle. So circles are drawn from, let's put the circle right on the ball. Circles are drawn from the center out. So if I put that right on the ball and pull out, I'll be centered around the ball. Where the oval, you'll notice the little bullseye is up in the corner. So for the oval, it's corner to corner. All right, so moving down to the path tool, let's go ahead and put, Addie in motion here. And we'll start her, and let's track the ball through time and space here. So I'm going to go ahead and click path. Now path is a little different. It's not a click and drag. I'll just put a dot on the ball. In this case, I'll use plus, plus, plus. So we're talking for the first time about video control. I'm controlling the video in this case, moving it forward to frame 209, and I'm still in path mode, so I'll put another dot on the ball. And now I'll hit the plus key. Notice I'm on frame 210 of 359. I'll plus again, or I'll dot the ball again, and now I'll plus again. Now you should note, if you're a two-handed typist, keyboardist, that you can also just hit the arrow key. So I just hit the right arrow, and that also moves my video, in this case to frame 213, to frame 214, right arrow, and after each right arrow I dot the ball because I'm still in the path mode. So you notice, now this won't be a perfect circle, but I can also draw an arc through those. And it's not perfect because she's also moving linearly. So if she were in a single place, it would look more like a perfect circle, but you notice she's moving linear, as well as bringing the ball into a circle. So that's the path tool. All right, now the angle tool, you can, again, this is a dot tool, if you will. It's a dot, dot, dot. So when I put down 3 dots, then I will get, let me erase everything here. When I put down 3 dots with the angle tool, I will get the angle, and I will also get the ability to continue that and put new, it measures the interior angle. So I get new interior angles. All right. Now, in a lot of cases, what I'm trying to show my athlete is maybe that they're too upright or maybe too crouched. So in those cases, what I don't want to do is get them fixated on 88 degrees. So there's a case where I might, again, use the variation of the angle. And you notice as I toggle this, the only difference in the 2 angle tools is that one has the X and one doesn't. So if I choose the angle that does not have the degrees, then really what I want to show out of here is if I draw your hips down to your legs, this is your skeleton. So in a lot of cases, I'm trying to show my athlete their skeleton, and I don't want them fixated on angles. So that's where I would use the angle without the angle. So it's really just the sticks of the angle. So again, let me erase. We're going to go to the ruler tool. And typically what the ruler tool is good for is, I'll bring Addie back to this frame where she's standing straight up. And the reason I do that is so I can measure her. Now, I don't know if Addie's 4 foot tall or 5 foot tall, but what I can do, you notice that's 243 pixels at 87 degrees. 87 degrees means I didn't draw perfectly straight, but that's okay. Plus or minus a pixel. And now what I do, I see the rubber there, and I see where she landed. So what I can do is hit the ruler tool again, and I'll drag from the rubber to where her foot landed, and I will tell Addie that she strides in her pitching step 97% of her height, which is excellent, especially at this age level. So again, whatever your target is, and I'm not here to coach the pitching stroke here, but the point is the ruler tool will let you measure two things, and it'll give you the percentage that the second was of the first. So whether that's the stride or the how far an athlete's feet are apart when he's either batting or hitting a golf ball, you might have, as a coach, you might have a certain metric, that I want your feet about 45%, of your height. I want your feet at 30% of your height. So that's what you'll get with the ruler tool. So now let's talk about the text tool. So erase all. Now the text tool has been completely redesigned, and you're going to notice two things. You're going to notice a new set of boxes here. So right now these are 9 slots that I can put text in. And the way that I put the text in, formerly we had a single slot that you put text in, and if you hit the carriage return, then it saved that text and you could pop up a little expandable list. The only real issue we had with that is that the list itself only was visible when you popped it up. So what I can do now, what you're going to find out is when you come into your account, you're going to have 2 slots already created, already has text in them. And you have 9 slots overall. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in, because I want to use this to better market my services as a coach, so I'm going to come in and put my URL, my PowerChalk URL, in slot 9. All right, I'm going to go ahead and change this to, let's say, good, better, and best. So I went ahead and put values, you notice, in slot 1, 2, 3, and 9, and then I'm going to say OK. Now what the system does is it fills up these slots, and it lets me, as I hover, as I move my cursor over each and hover, it tells me what's in that slot. So if I want good to show up on the screen, all I've got to do is turn text on. So here's my on and off button. So think of this as showing or not showing. So this little check mark that's down next to the T either shows or hides the text. Clicking the text box, if I want the word better to show up, then I'll click the text box for number 2. Now if I want my URL to show up, I'll hover over frame 9. It tells me before I click what's in that slot, and if that's what I want, I click it, and now I have that showing. Now to turn it all off, I simply click the checkbox. And now I've turned off text showing. So let's do that again. We'll click on, we'll put slot 1. So here, as coaches, here's what I would suggest, is that if I've got a lesson to give, and I want to say, hey Mike, there's 3 steps to this. There's step 1, there's step 2, and step 3. I can go ahead and preload these. One of the premises here is that once you hit that record button and you start giving a real lesson, it's very difficult to type, and certainly nobody likes to type in front of other people. So what we're able to do here is we're able to preload these boxes, good, better, and best. And what I have now is I have all that preloaded. So before I ever hit the record button, I'd put in the phrases that I want to use as a coach. I'd turn things off, and I would start my lesson. I would hit the record button, and I would say, hey guys, the point of this lesson, the goal of this lesson is to really show you 3 things. And I'd click on number 1, number 2, and number 3. So at the appropriate parts of my lesson, I could say, we're going to talk about 3 things, bang, bang, bang. And I can just hit those 3 buttons, the 1, 2, and 3, which I know I've preloaded. Now I can turn that off. I can do more of my lesson. And then at some point I can say good, better, and best. So again, that's the new text system. It's a little bit complicated, but in a lot of ways it's easier than the old system because things are much more visible. So to throw a blanket over this whole thing, just remember that you have the big text over here, the big button lets you define the slots, define your text slots, and there's really no setting here. There's no way to show, hide, change the colors. This is all about just defining the slots, the 9 slots, and then you have the ability out here to show or hide using the checkbox, and you have the ability while you're showing to change the color of the text. All right, so if I jump over to my URL, which I'm going to go ahead and keep that in slot 9. And the reason is if I have a lesson and I want to say, hey, this lesson is kind of a 1, 2, 3 thing, or this lesson is a 1, 2, 3, 4 thing, I want to keep slots 1, 2, 3, and 4, those slots open so they correspond to and they line up with what I'm teaching that day. So I'm going to go ahead and put my URL in number 9 and just keep it there. Now, by the way, this now saves and reloads every time you enter the Telestrator, even if you move to a different machine. So it picks it up from the cloud server and brings it to whatever Telestrator you're in. Now, one other point while we're here is that in a lot of cases, and I see a question here talking about the fact that some text that I'm trying to put in doesn't always fit. So let me talk about that. What I can do is, first of all, if I had a long URL, I may take the www off of there because PowerChalk.com/Chaz Henry will still get you there. But let's talk about putting something else. And I'm going to say this is a line, and I'm going to put a semicolon in. So if you notice down here in the help, it says use a semicolon for a new line carriage return. This is a line. This is on the next line. And I'm going to hit another semicolon, and this is on the third. All right, so in slot 7, I've put, via the semicolon, I've put a 3-line piece of text. So now if I click on slot 7, there's what you get. Now if I want to push that down the page a little bit, and again, these are things you can do before your recording session starts. I could put semicolon, semicolon in front of the text, and now when I refresh 7, it centers it up very nicely on the page, and the reason, the way it centered it, is there's really 2 blank lines. There's the semicolon right in this area here. There's a semicolon, new line in here, and then here's where our 3 lines of text start. So again, use the semicolons to create lines, and in real time, when you start your sessions, is where you can look at your background. You can look at the video that's up. Now, if this were a grassy field video, then the green might not look so well. So the color is selected real time. All right, so that's the toolbar over here. That's the text. Now we're going to talk very quickly about keyframing. Now in this case, I have already, we'll go ahead and turn our text off. I have already keyframed this video. So I went through the video, and we'll just make an adjustment here. I went through the video, and I set the position at which Addie was at circle parallel, 219. Now if I wanted to make a fine adjustment to that, notice I can just drag my playhead, and I can say parallel, and I can also roll my mouse wheel. Now parallel is basically when her arm was parallel, and I might say it's closer to 218. Now you notice just by moving the playhead to 218, whether I do it with the plus and minus buttons here, or whether I do it with my mouse wheel or my arrow keys, the fact that I'm clicked onto circle parallel, this button now reads circle parallel equals 218. So to set it to 218, I just click that button, and you notice now I'm at 218 instead of 219. So it's very easy to go through and set all the positions you need, and the value of doing that, again, since we're talking about giving high quality lessons, the value of doing that is if I go into the library, load B, I go to my favorites, and I have a favorite softball pitch clip that's from Jordan Taylor of Team USA. And so I notice I used my filter here. Even though favorites got this down to 10 or 20 videos instead of the hundreds of thousands that are in the system, I filtered it again specifically within my videos by using the keyword filter over here. So having selected Jordan Taylor, I can now say OK. It loads Jordan Taylor on the right side. And now with the use of keyframes, I can lock these two together and I can make them both jump to 1. In this case, position named 1, which is set. And now I can jump to stride foot up. So this is the point at which they are about to leave the ground with their stride foot. And now position 3, position 4. Notice as I do this, and especially because I've got the window split, that I sometimes need to center the images back up. And you do that with these little sliders up here. So this slider lets me slide Addy over and lets me slide Jordan Taylor over. So as they progress, obviously they tend to run toward the right of the frame, and I can keep them centered up by sliding them over. Now, everything that I'm doing would be recorded. When I finally hit the record button, it starts from where I'm at. It starts from where I'm at in the video. It basically starts to record everything that happens in this window right here. So I'm drawing that window out, stretching that box out. I'm basically saying that the resulting video, the ChalkTalk, if you will, is being generated from what I do inside that window. Obviously, all of my controls are not part of my final video. So that's really, what you need to think of as a coach is what goes on and what gets put in this video window is what becomes my final lesson. So to illustrate a couple more of the buttons, I've already made Addy a favorite, but if I hadn't, if this was a video that I come back to often, then I can just click the heart button here and it will favorite that video. And again, that's stored in the cloud, so that's always part of my favorites. And I'll do the same for Jordan Taylor. No harm in hitting it twice. If you're not sure whether or not you've saved it, just click it again because a favorite is a favorite. Now, had Jordan Taylor been left-handed, I could hit this button right here. You'll notice this as I hover it, it's a mirror image button. So it basically flips a video around horizontally. So it does a horizontal mirror on the video. So if Addy had been left-handed, I could easily take the Jordan Taylor clip and make her left-handed so they match up. You've got an information button, and you've got a readout here. This was filmed at 60 frames a second. Addy was filmed at 59. So I think Ryan made reference last week to the fact that keyframes are very valuable. Now, if I roll these frame by frame, because they were shot with virtually the same speed, they're going to line up very well. So as I roll frame by frame, their pace of pitch is similar, and the rate of the camera was also similar. So they're going to line up very well frame by frame by frame. And this is just me rolling my mouse wheel. But had Addy been shot with let's say a 24 or a 30 frame camera, an iPhone or a conventional camera, a lot of the HD cameras now shoot 24, you're not going to have all those extra frames. So it's more important than ever to keyframe both videos and then use these jumps. Use step 5, step 6 in order to move them ahead to get to the same spot and draw a comparison for your athlete between their position and the pro position. So that is keyframing. Again, just to go through the buttons here, you've got pause, you've got play in slow-mo and play in super slow-mo. Now when we say super slow-mo, that's 5 frames a second. A lot of people say, well, speeds does the Telestrator work in? The Telestrator doesn't really work in a speed. The Telestrator has broken these videos down into their constituent frames, and it really moves at whatever speed you want it to move in. So I can move 1 frame at a time. I can move 5 frames at a time. The other thing to know about the Telestrator is, of course, I can take this A tab and I can drag, as I'm doing here, but I can also just stab. So I don't have to drag this A all the way back to the front. I can just stab at the halfway point, halfway between where my cursor is now, or the playhead is now, in the front. I can just jump to there. And it basically, I get a quick note that says, hey, you were locked together, and this video over here couldn't jump 106 frames. So they're now unlocked. So it broke the lock by me trying to jump both videos 106 frames. So the system kind of watches out for you and makes sure that what you're doing is kosher. So that's the nuts and bolts of the Telestrator. I think that's a pretty decent walkthrough. Again, keep in mind that once I hit the record button, then I'm memorializing this session into a new video. I can also hit the PowerCast button, and I can broadcast this screen while my athlete at their home or at a different facility clicks watch and then joins into my session. And in that case, what you'll be sharing is not just the video window, but the entire screen. So in that case, you're sharing the entire screen out. So I see that I'm up against my time. That's our 30 minutes. At this point, I'm going to stop the recording, and I'll take a couple questions. Thanks again for tuning in, coaches. Please contact us directly if you have any questions or issues, and we'll see you online.